My name is Aodhán from the Department of Arts, Heritage, Regional, Rural and Gaeltacht Affairs in Ireland. We're involved in language promotion. It's the last bit of the name there, Gaeltacht Affairs, the language promotion aspect of the department. So I'll just give you a brief outline on the data collection process and the type of data that we have available to us in Ireland. Oh, sorry. Irish is a funny language in certain respects. So before our Great Famine of 1845 to 1848, Irish was the most wide-spoken language in Ireland, and for various reasons, mainly the decimation of the population during the famine and mass emigration, the language English gradually became over the following 50 years became the main language in Ireland. But our Constitution of 1937 recognises Irish as the first official language, despite the fact that the vast majority of the people don't actually speak the language. But the Irish people have a great attachment to the language. It's mainly spoken as a community language on the west coast, pockets on the west coast of Ireland. But there is a huge movement of Irish language medium schools and that outside the traditional areas. So there's a great attachment to the language, even though a lot of people don't speak it. There is an aspiration there to speak the language among the general population, and that's reflected in attitudinal studies that have been carried out through the years. So basically most of the administration work in the public sector in Ireland is done through English. But in 2003 we had the introduction of the Official Languages Act, which basically provided a number of provisions, both direct and indirect, in relation to the services and type of documents that the state was to publish through Irish. So Acts of Parliament, obviously, most of our parliamentary work is done through English, but the Acts of Parliament are supposed to be provided simultaneously and published simultaneously in Irish and English. Court proceedings, people are entitled to, the citizens are entitled to, if they're in court, to conduct their proceedings through their choice of language, either Irish or English. So that by extension there, that means the rules of court, which are an extensive body of documentation provided by the Department of Justice, are translated into Irish. Stationery under the 2003 Act, stationery, signage and advertisements, job advertisements, public notices, that type of material is all published bilingually, and that's stipulated in regulation by our Minister. Written and electronic communication, if somebody writes to a public body in Irish, they have the right to receive their response in Irish, and electronic communication as well. Also in relation to the direct provisions, any document setting out public policy proposals, so things like local authority development plans, they would have to be published bilingually. Annual reports, public bodies' annual reports, about 600 public bodies in Ireland, so all those annual reports are obliged to publish them bilingually. Audited accounts and financial statements, again of public bodies. Statement of strategy, all as just like your own, all our bodies have statement of strategy lasting usually 3 years. They're all published bilingually. And documents of major public importance, which are to be prescribed by regulation by the Minister for the Gaeltacht. And so they're the main direct provisions of the Act. And then we have the indirect provisions, which are basically agreed between our Minister and each public body, and set down in language schemes. These schemes last a period of 3 years. So it'll basically, each public body will agree to what services they will provide in English, what services they'll provide in Irish, and what service they'll provide in both languages. And that the implementation then of these schemes is monitored by an independent language commissioner. So this is all building up a body of translated documentation in Ireland in Irish, and that is available for collection by us as parallel data. As I said, that the schemes last 3 years. I think I've covered that slide there. There is some low-hanging fruit, as we call it in Ireland, when it comes to collecting data. We have a number of Irish promotion bodies. As I said, our own department is one of those. We have a number of schemes, and there's one, the division where I work in, which is located in on the west coast. We carry out all our work through Irish, so there's a huge body of documentation there produced by us that would be available for collection. Aodhán na Gaeltracht, the Gaeltracht Authority, which looks after the economic and cultural development of the Irish-speaking regions. They again would work solely through the Irish language and would issue a large body and have a large body of documentation available to them. For us, the language body, it's an All-Ireland language body established under the Good Friday Peace Agreement in 1997. So they work on an all-Ireland basis, north and south, and they would have they're promoting the language and would have again a large body of data, and they're also responsible for producing Irish language dictionaries, which I'll come to later, which also provide a large body of data. The Office of the Language Commissioner, established since 2003, and probably not as much because there's not as much historical data there to make available to us. There are other, outside of the language promotion agencies, there are other bodies like the Department of Justice and Equality, which produces the rules of court, which are a huge body of data there. The universities, we have Irish is taught in most of our universities, and there are certain statutory requirements on the universities in relation to the production of annual reports, and that mainly under the Languages Act, but some of them have specific regulations, such as our specific statutory obligations, in particular NUIG in Galway. Department of Education Skills, Irish is a compulsory language, so all our school children from the age of 4 years of age up until the age of 18 are obliged to learn Irish. So there's a huge body of stuff there in relation to circulars, textbooks, all that kind of stuff that could be made available. I think one of the main things that's been, we're such a small country in Ireland that kind of a lot of people involved in the language know each other, and this kind of, in gathering the low-hanging fruit, you know, the personal touch has been very important, that we know the people we're dealing with, we know them personally, and they realise that whatever we're doing in this forum is for the benefit of the Irish language, and to try and get it in there in the centre of things in Europe, along with all the other official European languages. So I think that has been a big help, particularly like a colleague of mine, Cathal Convery, down there from Forest na Gaeilge. He's made a huge amount of lexicography data available to us, and probably because of the you know, we knew each other. We were able to. It's because we're such a small country. I think, you know, that personal contact is very important. So then, if we go to the higher hanging fruit, that I suppose it's going to be. We would hope with the lower hanging fruit that we'll achieve our objectives under the current arrangements. But we have also out there another 500 state bodies that are mainly in the semi-state sector, but some of the smaller government departments will be there as well. And we'd hope to get, under the, as I already said there, in relation to the Languages Act, their obligations will be mainly in relation to annual reports and statement of strategy, because they do most of their work through the English language, so they have this obligation to provide these documents in Irish. So that's a long-term project. What will help it along is a shared translation service that we are establishing for the central government departments, 15 government departments, and that's hoped to be up and running in 2017, early 2017. Say only for government only, but it has potential then as it proves its worth to be extended out to the other bodies on a gradual basis. So at that stage we'll be in a position then to gather their existing translation, the translated material. Some of that, a lot of that material would be held by freelance translators, and a lot of these bodies wouldn't be aware that they actually are entitled to get their hands on that. But we would be advising, our proposal is to advise them on getting that, to feed it into our translation memories, so that we can provide a service to them. But the offshoot of that is that as we get hold of this data, that we'll be able to provide it for this project. The types of data, again, language promotion bodies, there's a lot of, I suppose that bullet point is slightly incorrect there, mainly corporate documents from central government and from non-language promotion bodies. The language promotion bodies, as I said, have a huge amount of other data that will be very useful. So some clean-up required on the data. Personal information, there wouldn't be a huge amount of personal information involved in that, because the language and the nature of the work of the bodies is that we're generally not dealing with personal data. It's more schemes in relation to community groups and that. So the personal data, the type of stuff that most countries will be dealing with, say from social welfare departments or whatever, we wouldn't envisage ever encountering that in our search. And the semi-state sector, again, almost exclusively corporate documents. And again, we'd recommend avoiding personal data with data sets with a lot of personal stuff. The data we've already obtained, our Language Commissioner's Office has provided an amount of data. We still have to quantify exactly what's in it. Department of Justice, mainly rules of court material, 19,000 sentence pairs in TMX format. Our own department, we've provided 42,500 sentence pairs in TMX format. Again, DCU are looking at this data at the moment, Dublin City University, where their technology partners are the technology anchors. They're looking at this data and cleaning it up and anonymising where required. But there's a limited amount of anonymisation to be done in that. The first na Gaeilge data there, just to give you a sample of it there. You see, this is data that Cahill has provided us. It's from the new English-Irish dictionary, online dictionary. So as you can see there, you have the translations. It encumbers not just words but phrases. So there's data sets there. So there's a job of work probably to be done on that, to make it to put it into a suitable format that it can be used in the project. But there's a huge amount of I had some figures there. Where did I leave me? Oh, here it is. Just on that dictionary alone, there's 265,000 of those probably sentences, for want of a better word, sectors in English, 364,000 in Irish, 1.6 million words in English, 1.6 million words in Irish. So there's huge amounts of data, but as I said, it needs to be put into a format that is actually useful. For us, Cahill and his colleagues have provided us just 3 or 4 other dictionaries with similar amounts of data. Plus, there's other stuff from publishers. Again, as we spoke earlier, some of this stuff may contain slang and that, and needs to be cleaned up and that. But there's huge potential for using that data. So that's DCU we're gradually collecting it. There are a couple of other bodies in the semi-state sector that the Irish Language Promotion Agency that we're still going after. I know people in those agencies are collecting the stuff, and they will be forwarding it to us, hopefully in the very near future. So the next steps basically to keep picking the fruit. We'll get the low-hanging stuff initially, and we'll move on then in the next phase and get the higher hanging fruit. Thank you very much.